In a world of 350 billion movie podcasts, two chumps have decided that now is the time for cult movies to engage in combat. Disagreements will be had, blood may be spilled, and voiceover artists most definitely will not be paid. This is Cult Film Face-Off.
Hello and welcome to Cult Film Face-Off, episode 36. With me, as always, is Chet Roivas.
Hi.
And I am Nick Leonard. Legendary filmmaker and inventor of the modern zombie genre, George Romero passed away in July of this year. So as a tribute to the master craftsman, we shall be looking at two films from his cinematic legacy. Now, we decided to steer clear of his blockbuster zombie franchise and instead look at a pair of diverse films from earlier in his career in the 70s. So first up, from 1973, is The Crazies. A biological weapon infects the rural town of Evans, causing permanent insanity to the townspeople, leading to rioting and murder. Can the military contain this, or will there be a national disaster? The Crazies.
3,614 people are trapped by an unknown enemy. 5 are on the run. Can they escape the spreading fury of the Crazies?
You can make it. I know it.
Stop it! They're coming, David! David, they're coming.
Move. We gotta get out of here. Jesus, man. And I want a weapon search for the entire town.
Watch it, Bucky!
This is exactly the kind of thing we're trying to prevent.
A lethal terror snowballs into hell.
In there.
Madness runs rampant.
We'll dope it out. Sooner or later. Sooner or later.
The Crazies.
Right, let's jump to it. The Crazies, you seen it?
I saw it about 15 years ago. I went on a Romero binge when I was at my job involved working through the night, and I watched, I think, everything George Romero ever made, and all I remember about them was that I liked pretty much all of them, but that's about it. So yeah, I had seen it before. Recollection was hazy at best. What about you?
Yeah, I had seen The Crazies donkeys, over 15 years ago. I didn't have much recollection of it, to be honest, at all. It didn't really leave its mark on me.
So you don't even remember if you liked it or not?
I remember not particularly liking it. I remember finding it really talky and not enough action was my immediate thing when I started watching it again.
What did you think now?
It's got ambition. The concept's really good. I think it's hampered by a really low budget, and hampered by a largely pretty inept cast. The intro sequence is really strong. It's a really strong opener.
There's dark endings and then there's dark beginnings. That's an incredibly bleak ending of a guy of a man basically murdering his children. It
doesn't get worse than that.
You're not wrong. Yeah, it's all about setting a dark tone.
Yeah, and fuck, it is a dark tone. But I wish it kind of held to those convictions and continued to be a bit dark throughout. But it kind of. What I found problematic with this film is just the pacing is completely inconsistent, and it's kind of pinging to these three narrative strands, not letting you really get caught up in any of the story. Feel for any of those characters in any of the story. It just kind of pushed. It's one of those films that kind of pushed me away.
I basically loved this film. I'm watching it again. I recalled how much I loved it in the first place. This is not as subtle. Some would say that George Romero was never subtle, but this is not as subtle as his zombie trilogy. Because if you cast the townsfolk as Vietnamese actors, that's where that's the allegory. So it's not massively subtle. It's a film very much about Vietnam. But I thought it was fantastic. And Romero's film, he has this sort of fascination with procedure in this film. When the people are arguing in a room, every time there was one of those arguments, which in a lesser film you'd be like, you need to skip this to get to the action. I was completely engrossed because those conversations seemed really real, and when there was conflict, it was genuine. And all of those conversations, whether they were the top brass trying to decide whether they were going to nuke the town, or the people who were basically micromanaging on the ground, they all descended into them trying to save their own asses. And
we descended into a lot of shouty people talking over each other dialogue. There's a lot of shoutiness
I don't know, but
in the scenes with the army and the government and the clashing of heads. I just come to the point where I was going, oh, it's another shouty scene.
But those conversations are so much fresher than they are in most movies like this. It was Romero's underrated. His dialogue is underrated. The way he shoots things, I mean, I was stunned by how much, particularly in the first half, it looked like a documentary, because Romero cuts to things that are not necessarily, they're not cutaways or reaction shots. He just cuts to other things going on in the space, so it looks like they're splicing in footage that the way documentary
it's an interesting technique in the beginning of the film with how he's shooting on documentary, and how he was playing some soundtrack and conversations that weren't actually anything to do with that kind of scene, which is really kind of disorientating. And worked well. The cheapness of it was a problem, because you've got things like a burning priest, which is obviously quite a powerful image, especially what was going on in Vietnam, and do you know what I mean? The monks kind of doing that, and that, do you know what I mean? That kind of related to that. But it looks so cheap and so badly done. You just go, that's terrible. And it's one of those films where, when a helicopter is downed and goes out of sight, you just see a puff of smoke to simulate that the helicopter's gone down. And
I just felt that I feel that when a story is this well told, it's so cheap that it is periodically quite funny, but I didn't find that to be a problem, because I was so engrossed in the story. And it's amazing to me that George Romero can't do action. His ineptitude at action is pretty profound. I mean, I don't think he's very good at action sequences at all.
And he edited the film as well.
And the editing is very, very choppy, but then again, he was working with limited footage, I should imagine. But I was amazed at how little it matters. That the action scenes are either incoherent, there are action scenes where you're like, what the fuck is even happening? Or they're amateurish and basic. And I didn't feel like it mattered.
See, all of that just takes me out of all of that is taking me out of is a problem. I mean, the film bears many Romero emblems, government and military corruption, paranoia, humankind causing all of the most horrific shit to happen to themselves. I mean, all of those things which were done so well when he did his different parts of his zombie trilogy. I did care about those characters. I got I found the central kind of group of. The ex-Vietnam vet and his friend and I just didn't get into those characters at all. I didn't feel empathy for those characters. I wasn't rooting for those characters.
I don't know if I was rooting for them either, but I mean, I that was the least important part of the story. I just found the bureaucracy, these conversations that they were having, were so much more relatable and understandable, and their confusion was relatable. And when they all started either arguing or trying to save their own backsides, I was like, this seems like the kind of... Too often you get sort of bombarded with jargon and bullshit, and this, I was completely...
It was easy to follow, but I just didn't.
But it's all.
I could not get into it. I found it. As I said, I get there's a big power struggle between the government and actually, the people in the white suits are actually worse than the actual Trixie infection itself. But I kind of was just like, it's another shouty scene in a small office with an outburst of violence. 3 kind of senior guys shouting over each other, and I was like, okay, I get there's kind of this is building to chaos, but I didn't really care too much about it.
Every time they it would ebb and flow between them trying to come up with solutions and then them falling apart. I thought it was just such a
but he kept doing that. He kept perpetually going around and trying it out and falling out.
That's the whole point. And I mean, I think also this is something that I'd forgotten watching both of these films. Romero's films are fucking funny. George Romero's films are funny. I mean, when they're sort of bureaucracy gets out of control, there's a scene when a guy the scientist who's working on the antidote tries to contact somebody about, and they're like, oh, have you got we need your password. And he's like, I need to speak to the guy who's 5 minutes up the road. I was with him 2 minutes ago. Can you just put me through? I mean, that stuff was really funny. The death by knitting needle. And the guy's pulling away and the arms attached,
and then she just sits down.
Really funny.
I wish there was more of that. I mean, it's interesting because what he does is, he's very socially aware, Romero, and obviously the whole Watergate scandal which happened at the time caused widespread distrust in the government. So he's, sticking to those themes of you can't trust the fucking officials, you can't trust, they're all completely corrupted and it's only their own personal gain.
The thing that I thought was most interesting about this is that, both of these films were made at a time when that were pretty fucking mental what was going on in the States at the time. And this disease that everyone has is supposed to send you, the crazies. That's the only way that people can describe it. Almost all of the behaviour that's exhibited by anybody in the film could be construed as crazy. When the who I'd say was the lead actress starts talking, all of these things are, she starts talking, her thoughts get all mangled, and then there's the priest obviously torturing himself, and the soldier who starts freaking out when they're burning all the bodies. Like, these are things that can legitimately happen to people and they're not crazy, but you're watching the thing thinking, who's mad? So there's people making mad decisions over here and they're supposed to be infected by this. I thought the conundrum of who the fuck has got this thing, that was the most interesting part to me.
What was odd, there was a scene, I mean, whether this was intentionally funny or not, it fucking made me laugh more than anything else in the film, is when there is, there's a scene out in kind of like a farmer's field where I think it's the first attack by a mass lot of crazies, and it's like, all of them are fucking crazy and violent, apart from the girl at the back who's sweeping crops.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of like,
that's really funny.
Which made me laugh. The fucking grasshopper sounds and the constant military drumming. I mean, I know we're in a fucking scene with the military. I was like, you don't need to do that. And the fucking grasshoppers, the grasshopper sound effect, I was like, are you trying to make me go fucking mad?
I didn't even notice.
God, it kept piping through the sound of this like cheep, 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 the grasshopper sound effect. Yeah, maddening. But is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I
thought ultimately, I found it it was an interesting kind of experimental film in terms of what George Romero was doing here. Documentary type, sort of documentary style kind of filming. But for me, it was just a bit of a. It just felt inconsistent to me. It just was jumbled and kind of the pacing was... And I just felt pushed away. I didn't care about the characters. For me, it's like to buy into the cause of the town or the people, or I just felt I didn't really give a shit about them, which is a problem. Yeah, it's kind of like an interesting concept. It really hampered badly by having no budget at all. I mean, being really low budget. I don't know what the remake's like. I assume they put way more money into the remake.
The remake's good, but it kind of there aren't many subtleties in the Romero version, but there are some. And the remake, I mean, the remake's a very enjoyable entertainment.
He produced, right? He didn't direct.
Yeah,
Who directed it?
What's his name? He's a guy. Nepotism. Sorry, let me check. Breck Eisner.
Okay.
He also made Sahara, which was the sticker. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Crazies remake is very enjoyable, but it's not. I honestly thought this was a terrific film. It's not. It's unsubtle in ways that a lot of Romero films aren't. And I thought it was interesting to show essentially the side of a zombie outbreak that you don't see in his other zombie films so much, especially not the first three. It's more about the business of trying to deal with it.
Yeah. Trying to contain it, trying to drop him in new. Yeah.
It's not really concerned about the people on the ground, which is why I think it works as a very, very blunt Vietnam allegory. But I found it periodically funny. I was gripped. I could watch Romero construct scenes like that all day. I completely believed in everything. I don't know. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And the beginning's bleak. The last 15 minutes are fucking so savage. They're so dark. Yeah. Everything that happens is all for fucking nothing. And it's just I love it.
It's bookended by two very strong scenes. But yeah, I'm not going to be watching it again.
I will watch this.
As I said when I first watched it, I was like, there wasn't enough action. It was really kind of talky. I got into it more this time to a certain degree, but I just didn't. So much of that hinges with that main group of characters. A lot of it's those main group of characters. It's kind of like. It's fairly evenly shared between those group of characters and what's happening in the military.
I felt like it focused on them slightly less. And the other thing that I think about Romero, and I think this is true again of all of his Pittsburgh films, more or less, is that he works with actors who aren't bad; they're just untrained. So I think they're more interesting to watch. I mean, particularly the Dr. Watts.
Is he the guy who's also in the Dead film, and he's the announcer with the deep kind of baritone?
Oh, I think.
What are you doing?
I think that's
he's got a very particular voice.
Yeah, but
he's great.
He's perpetually like.
He's great. I mean, the acting in terms of the people who are playing the military chiefs and the scientists. I didn't have a problem with them. It was the two friends with the girl. They were the human element you're meant to be rooting for, and their acting was.
What I thought was interesting is I'm not sure if you were supposed to root for them. I thought it was a weird. My reaction to it was quite cold and clinical because I felt like you were being presented with essentially a procedural about how these people would deal with it and how dark it would get. Because it is dark at the beginning. You're like, what the fuck is going on? They're just rounding people up like they're prisoners of war.
Yeah, the beginning of it has got some strong scenes, and when obviously it just chaos is breaking out and people are infected a kind of it's spitting on like a scientist or something like this. It's spitting on a scientist. And it creates a great sense of bedlam. But it was just a lot of scenes of shouty scenes of kind of like. Yeah, and then a guy pop-shotting from like way really far away into a window, managing to take out loads of them. I was like, there's no way he's not got a sniper rifle. He's some mad hick with like a really basic bolt rifle, and it's all a bit silly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any of those issues at all. I thought it was absolutely tremendous, to be honest. Not his greatest film, and very, very blunt for him.
Yeah, the concept I like, the execution I've got problems with.
He definitely can't do action though. I mean, the scene where they're being chased by a helicopter that clearly doesn't have anyone shooting at them, and there's no loudspeakers. They're going, we're going. That's amateurishly done. He's terrible at action scenes, but I just didn't give a shit.
Yeah. So that sort of stuff takes me out of the whole situation, the whole film.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Right. Okay.
You.
Next up, from 1978, is Martin. A young man who craves human blood goes to live with his cousin in a small Pennsylvanian town. His cousin is determined to quell these urges. Will he be able to stop the bloodlust? Martin.
My name is Martin. I'm 84 years old. People think I'm crazy when I tell them how old I am. I'd like to be normal. I just have a sickness. The only way I can survive is by drinking blood. It's not easy living the way I do. I have to be careful all the time. But I'm pretty good at it. I think as I get older, I get better. I haven't been caught yet.
Martin, another kind of terror.
Right, Martin. Had you seen it before?
Again, similar. I watched it at a similar sort of time. Remembered that I liked it. Didn't remember anything else about it. What about you?
I've never seen Martin, and it's been a film that I have always wanted to see.
Oh yeah. Okay. How did it go down?
It's got a very effective, unsettling sound palette throughout the whole film. These isolated piano keys and a really good opening sequence. I mean, I was just completely sucked in to Martin from the off. I mean, that train sequence is just kind of gritty, kind of like what the fuck's happening. You're just trying to get your bearings on this character, and obviously knowing it's going to be about vampires, but this is not a conventional vampire story by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all, no.
Yeah, I mean, I found it a very interesting film. By and large, I really enjoyed it. What do you think of mine?
I absolutely adored it. I mean, I think it's a truly, truly original. Watching it unfold, I was like, I don't know what
originality. Original is the word here, because there is nothing else you can compare this to.
No, and I just. We're going to talk about another director next in our next episode, and in stark contrast to that, you just feel like Romero just has to tell his story in every frame. We're being told this story, and there's no establishing shots or the film starts and you see a guy staring at a girl, and then you're off straight away. And that beginning scene is you're just spellbound, and there's a guy is trying to extract. The thing that I thought was amazing is that it starts off and you think that he's very, very awkward and very, very apologetic, and you think he's going to be compassionate. And I saw these little vials in his little container that he drugs her, and I thought, he's going to extract blood from her and then leave her alone. And then the brutal kill straight away. I was like, fuck! Yeah. They don't show. I mean, all of the murders in this are really fucking horrific.
Yeah, it's the victimization scenes are done really well. I mean, effectively well. They're kind of kinetic and they're brutal and they're harsh.
Because it's almost like he sets the scene up so you're not expecting it to be brutal.
It makes the fucking the gravitas of what he's doing hit home so much more.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you do feel sorry for him because he cuts a pathetic figure.
Yeah.
You know? You do kind, he does, he's the archetypal kind of lonely, a social outcast.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, he's fucking cold-hearted killer.
Yeah. I thought this was fascinating for every frame, and when you watch this guy trying to manage in this weird kind of makeshift. Like a rehab centre, a family rehab centre. I just found him interacting with all of the people in the neighbourhood fascinating. And then when it started, he started stalking his second victim. or second victims. It started to lose me a little bit. I was kind of disappointed that it was turning overtly back into a horror film, and then that was the best scene in the film. The couple in the house.
Yeah.
That is one of the best scenes in a horror film. I mean,
it's great.
It's
Believable. It's great.
It's like a cat and mouse game.
Well, yeah, and he keeps and just when they're funny, the drugs kick in, and you're just like, oh,
yeah.
You just think to yourself, if I was you're in that situation with your partner, I was like, it'd be horrific.
Yeah. But also he doesn't rely on those cheap filmic techniques. In a lot of films, he would get injected.
No, and also
it starts slowly taking.
Yeah,
effect.
exactly, and which makes it all the more horrific. And there's no cheap fucking jump scares in there at all.
Yeah, exactly. And he just keeps. He does this. They're on the phone, and he keeps fucking the dot so they can't call him for help.
Yeah.
It's such a great scene. And Romero, again, like in the Crazies, he's so good at writing the kind of exasperating dialogue that people say in situations like that. He's call 911. No, I don't want the police. That's not the fucking police. It's the general. They're having these stupid conversations and killing time. He's so good at doing that shit.
It's very slow paced.
I mean, very.
I mean, molasses kind of snail pace.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's eerily captivating. I mean, I was completely, even though it was very slow in pace, I was absolutely, I was in from the off. Suspenseful direction. He does suspenseful direction so well.
He really does.
What I found really interesting with it is that the film never confirms or denies whether Martin is a vampire.
Yeah.
And I think there is so much strength in that ambiguity, as it can be read in multiple ways.
Yeah, I mean, the key to it is his cousin, who is furious.
His cousin?
She's furious that this kind
his cousin. I was going to say, his cousin is the man, right?
No, his cousin's the girl, the daughter of the guy who's the priest.
No, but he meets it. I mean, his cousin is the guy who looks like he looks like the Colonel from KFC.
No, that's his.
That's his cousin. That's his cousin's daughter.
But doesn't he refer to her as his cousin?
No, Cuda is his cousin.
I'm sure he referred to his daughter as her cousin. Anyway, because I'm sure that she's the cousin. I don't know. Either way.
2 seconds. I read on the intro. Lives with his cousin. It's his cousin. The old guy is his old cousin. But that's his daughter, the cousin's daughter. It's not his uncle or anything. It's his cousin.
But they introduce her. He goes, "This is your cousin."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're family anyway.
By the way,
but she thinks that these myths that are so tied to the family are like she thinks that's the curse. The fact that they
mental health problem.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that it's completely ambiguous, and then those Martin's flashbacks to those pokey black and white scenes where you can see a smoke machine in one scene and there's like a bust in the back of one, and it's like this seems like the kind of thing that's in his head because he's had it drilled into him by his family. It's kind of like the Crazies, and you don't really know who's crazy. Who's crazy?
Similarly, in terms of Romero social commentary on a post-Vietnam society that is dealing with things like drug addiction, recession, isolation. Yeah. But I just feel that this does this so much more effectively and resonated more with me than the Crazies did. It's a really. I mean, I was thinking about this film for days afterwards. I didn't do that with the Crazies.
I love them both. I feel like in both films you're kind of. I was gripped by both films because you're just kind of questioning what's sanity. I mean, who's mad?
Who's mad? It's fucking his cousin. I mean, the Lithuanian priest who's going. Is he mentally fucking normal?
Yeah.
But he's putting all this shit on Martin.
And either way, Martin is a fucking killer. But he's kind of cursed to just have his head full. That's why those flashbacks were so interesting because it looked like the kind of thing that were just knocked up very, very briskly. So it seemed to me, it felt to me anyway, like they were clearly
in his head.
Yeah.
They weren't things that are happening.
Well, I mean, that's what he said. He's like, what did he say? I'm 400 years old.
Yeah, 400 years. Yeah. I mean, it did make me laugh out loud when his cousin opens the door and he says, "First I will save your soul, then I will destroy you. Let me show you to your room." I mean, there is dark humour in this, 100%. I mean, with Martin dressing up in a cape and oversized dentures, I mean, that's just, saying how fucking actually ridiculous is the old school, the kind of Bela Lugosi.
Right.
How ridiculous is that? What is far more chilling and scary is having a fucking, you know, a bloodlusting fucking young man who's going around drugging women and fucking draining blood out of them.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is a fucking great location. I mean, it's just this perfect, desolate grimness. It's just, you know, what a great, perfect location for the tone.
He always makes the most of it. I'm surprised that more people don't film there, to be honest, or haven't done in the past. This and it has a fantastic ending. I mean, the idea that this guy might be rehabilitated by a woman is the kind, you know, that will always be a truism. And then, you know, the unbelievably bleak ending. Unbelievably double whammy. I mean, both of these films end on the fucking biggest bum notes of history.
It was a tough week.
Yeah. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
And the casting as well. I mean, you know, John Amplis as Martin is just
fantastic.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Has he gone to do anything else?
Nothing that I know of. I know that he was a stage actor, and Romero originally was going to have the character be a bit older. But he saw this guy and he kind of based it around him. And it's his wife, the main lead. Christina, that's Romero's wife, Christina Forrest.
Christina Forrest, yeah. And obviously Romero's cameo in
as the priest,
the priest as well.
Very good.
I mean, I had high expectations. I've always wanted this for a long time because of loving Romero's other films, other, you know, more popular films, and you know, he's quoted as saying Martin is his favourite film, and I can completely see why that is. It's a wholly unique film.
Yeah.
I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And it's one of those things that I wanted to see for such a long time. And it's quite rare when you build something up for so long and go, how is that going to turn out?
And it delivers, yeah.
And it delivers.
It's really hard to find. Like
I think it's such a shame.
Yeah.
It's such a, I mean, has it had? I mean, I don't know if it's had a, you know, it's been given the Blu-ray treatment and somebody's done all that.
No, I've got an battered old DVD.
Surely now with.
You'd think that it would be due, but yeah, a fantastic film, an incredible, and just so many amazingly well crafted scenes. That's the central set piece in the house where he's basically stalking that couple is amazingly well done. Yeah. Just full of suspense, full of surprises.
Yeah.
I mean, the music was unbelievably weird at times, but
I thought it was effective. I really thought that. I thought the soundtrack was really effective.
I agree, and it suits what is a very, very weird film, brilliantly weird. A fucking tremendous film. So, I mean, if we're gonna have to pick one of these films to win, where are we going?
I'm going mine.
I couldn't decide, so I was just going to go with you. But after we talked about that, and I've thought about it, I'd probably go with Martin as well. Although I did love the Crazies. I think you can't go wrong with either of these films, to be honest. But Martin is just, it is completely and utterly original. So I'd go, I think Martin's the winner.
All right, there we go. That's another one in the can.
Sure.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Would really be helpful if you can get on the social ting, Facebook it up, Twitter it up. All of the episodes are cut in glorious Technicolor on YouTube. iTunes reviews, big us up.
Very helpful.
If you're enjoying it, they help. We'll be back soon with another episode. Chubless!
Take it easy.
Cult film face-off.
Nosferatu. Nosferatu.
Reside ergo in nomine Patris et Filii Spiritu et Sancti.
Vampire. First, I will save your soul. Then I will destroy you.
Tony Buba, whose house this belongs to, and his family, his grandmother lives in this house, and we shot a great portion of Martin here in this house. And we were in the third floor attic where Martin slept. And she was quite concerned that we had a fondness for one another. And she was quite concerned and wasn't at all too sure exactly what they were doing to me up there.